Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the TFC Racing channel. We're in for a treat today. We've got another video coming with Z. This time we're going to watch one of his races, specifically focusing just on his sprints. We got a quickie today. So Z, say hi.
Hey guys, yeah, I'm excited to be back and talking about one of the races I've been looking forward to the entire season. This was definitely marked on my calendar as a sprinter stage, so pretty excited to go through the footage here.
ZRL Stage 8. This was the one on Latisse Express again. 7 sprints for the B category, including the lead-in. We only got footage of 6 of them. We missed the lead-in, but we're going to look at all of them along with the final sprint. So for each of these sprints, we're going to start before we get to the arc and do the little cul-de-sac, and we'll see the lead-in to the sprint, the run-up, and Z's actual sprint until he basically super tucks afterwards. And we'll talk our way through it and look at what he did for each one of these, as he went for FTS sometimes, FAL sometimes, and sometimes just trying to hang on and make sure he didn't get dropped.
Before we get into the race, let's look how the points are awarded. So first place and second place are 40 and 35 points, and then down to 30 for third, and then 1 point increments all the way down to 10th. So obviously top 2 is super important. For the primes, the first across the line starts at 10 and goes to 1 for the top 10. So pretty simple there, and they're awarded every lap. Fastest time segment is for the entire race, so all sprints accumulated throughout the race, with the top time getting 20 points and so on from there, as you can see at the bottom of the screen here.
We're coming up to the sprint for lap 1. This one is actually the second sprint. Z sitting on an arrow, and tell us what you're thinking.
Here, I got lucky enough to get an arrow through the banner after the first sprint. The first sprint I took pretty easy because there were no power-ups, so I kind of just went for FAL. Here, I'm 100% focused on FTS. So essentially, I'm trying to find the biggest, fastest group to put myself behind, because I want to use all of the draft I can and to suck wheel the fastest guys essentially. And you see my teammate there, yourself, Gary. You drop an arrow, and I'm like, I know that you're one of the best sprinters in this league, and so I drop my arrow and just try to follow your draft, because I know that you're going to hold it to the line, and this is going to allow us to get the best chance at an FTS. And so, yeah, once I see you go, I put my head down, hit my arrow boost, and just go all out.
Yeah, we took 1-2 there, and those times actually held up pretty well for the rest of the ride. I think you end up with 1 more on that list. If you were able to steer in Zwift, that would have looked like a really perfect lead out. You jumped right on my wheel just as I passed, and we held it straight through. So good job on that one. So really just that one was a little bit different than your typical sprint because it stretched out so much, but you found a good wheel. We had a decent blob. We sprinted straight through it and worked out really well.
Yeah, and I will say too, one thing to note is at the end of that sprint, how I was so far in front of everybody, and super tucking on cobbles really slowed me down when I was alone. So that's definitely something I kept in mind as the race went on, because I had to burn a match or two just to stay in the pack after that. But yeah, I mean, goal accomplished there. I think I hit a 12.3, which definitely held up for the rest of the race there. So that was a good first real sprint for me.
Okay, so sprint on lap 2 coming up. Same position, sitting on another arrow, getting some good luck, and heading around the arc again. Tell us what's going to happen here.
Yeah, I actually only got one power up besides an arrow all the times I got an arrow. So third lap, my goal going into this race was first couple laps. If I got an arrow, I'm going to go for an FTS, because I wanted the top 2 times, knowing that I'm probably the best sprinter out of this pack. So again, same deal. Here we're a lot more blobbed up, most likely because people are more tired and not trying to go early. But I give myself a quick break. You actually see me going down to 0, and then again, I just absolutely explode out of this one. And this was actually my best 15-second power. And I did spike before the start of the sprint, but it was actually a little bit slower than the first sprint. And I think mostly because other guys weren't going as hard for this sprint. And so I kind of just flew through the pack and hit the front before the end of the sprint. But either way, I think that was like around a 12.5. 12.6, and so that was good enough for the second fastest time. And so that was really nice for me, getting first and second FTS, obviously, in the first 3 laps, because that means that I don't have to try as hard for the last 3 laps. I can start to focus really on the finish and not burn any crazy big matches like I did for those first 2 sprints.
And that one looked more like a traditional sprint where it's a blob. It's not a super stretched out pack, and you can really just kind of explode through it, like you said. I didn't give you the wheel this time that I did last time. Maybe you could have gotten an even better time. Still, it was a great sprint, really well executed, and you picked up a ton of points on that one. All right, lap 3, sprint 4, sitting on another arrow. Getting lucky again. Here we go around the arc. And what are you thinking this time?
Yeah, super lucky. Sprinter's dream really to get arrow after arrow. I think I still have enough chances to get another arrow before the finish. But I think on this one, I'd already done 2 really hard efforts. So I'm kind of not going for FTS here, and I'm contemplating going for FAL versus kind of just staying in the pack. And I think I do something in between. So probably not the best example of a sprint. You see me starting to hit the front here a little bit too early. And like I said, I don't want to hit the front because the super tuck will really slow me down. So I just stay in the blob of the first like 3, 4 riders, hoping to get second or third across the line. So that way I can still super tuck behind somebody else and not slow down that much and comfortably stay within the pack on the descent. So, at this point, I've already racked up a bunch of points, FAL and FTS combined, and you did as well. So we're sitting in such a good position that I didn't feel the need to actually push super hard to get the first across the line and burn a bigger match and also have to burn another match on the descent, tacking onto the group kind of going past me. So I just kind of settled for second or third, just making sure I stay consistent, getting some points, and then again, focus on the finish for me is big here.
That makes a lot of sense, honestly. I was thinking a lot along the same lines, really. Our goal was really to rack up as many points as quickly as we could and just watch the rest of the teams to make sure that nobody else was really coming close to us. And it did not appear that anybody else was, going to be in the conversation as far as primes goes.
And if both of us are scoring top 5 FAL, like that is better than any other team. You don't see 2 of the same jerseys around us. So that's one good indication. And the other good indication is on the leaderboard on the left where we have the top 2 times. And I know that I also have the second fastest time because it's between the top 2 times. So that's something other people may not have the information for, but I can see my own times on the leaderboard, so I know that we have 1, 2, 3 FTS, and then we're consistently getting top 5 FAL. So I know that we're definitely, scoring a lot more points than any other team here.
Okay, this is lap 4, sprint number 5 coming up. Looks like it's a bit more stretched out than we've seen in the last couple of laps, but you're sitting on an arrow again. How do we feel about this one?
Yep, arrows galore here. So I'm feeling good. Again, there are 5 banners before the finish, so I can pretty much guarantee myself another arrow again. So I'm okay using it just again to stay in the front of the pack, hopefully score a few FAL points. But again, the key for me is really not burn any extra matches, knowing that we have so many points in the bag. Where I don't want to hit the front really, I just want to score a few points every lap, and that's exactly what I do. Stay super comfortably in the front group. Don't have to burn any matches on the descent. And actually, this race was a little bit interesting because we had 2 major teams, OTR, which I think have 3 sub teams in our race, and Z-Sun, which are just super strong high walk guys. And none of them got dropped in this race really. So those 2 teams made it really hard on the descents and the climbs. And so I really don't want to burn any matches. I suspect that if the middle of the race was actually easier, I might have gone for even more FAL points and even tried my hand at another FTS if I was feeling really good. But because the middles, parts between the sprints weren't that easy, I just wanted to make sure I kept all my matches in case they tried a really coordinated move again, as they had already done that a few times in the race. So that's kind of my mindset going through that sprint.
All right, lap 5, heading into the last lap, sitting on another arrow, queued up. Let's go. What are we thinking?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I really want to save my arrow, and it's there's only 1 lap left after this. So again, at this point, we're kind of keeping a mental track of any points, FAL and FTS. Nobody's really bested our FTS times, and we've consistently scored FAL again. So we're above and beyond, any other team. There's no team that's close to us really at this point. So, again, I'm trying to position myself well, trying not to burn too many matches, stay within that front blob that's accelerating fast because they're the fastest draft, and you'll see me be able to take a few breaks actually in the sprint, and just stay within the group. I probably eased off a little bit too much there. I realized it. Um, but my point here is just to stay in the middle of the pack. And if you look at the mini map on the top right, you see me smack dab in the middle of our group. So, kind of mission accomplished there. Not really caring too much about points this late in the race, given how well we did on points already, and just trying to stay safe. And the key here is really keeping that arrow because I need that for the finish.
All right, heading into the final sprint and the finish. So we're going to let this one play all the way through, sitting on that same arrow again, and we got about 2K to go. So Z, tell us what happens here.
Yeah, I saved that arrow from the last clip you saw, all the way up through here. To be honest, I'm feeling pretty good here. So, part of me was starting to feel greedy, saying, should I go for FAL? But then I knew if I lost the race on that, I would never hear the end of it from you. So I decided to just play it safe. And again, you see me doing the same thing, staying in the pack, staying with the front blob of riders in case anyone tries something funny and tries to go for a long one. Staying about top 10, top 15, which is midway through this pack. And the key here on this descent, and you see I didn't get any points there, which I really don't care about at this point. But the key here is to time the super tucks really well. So there's a strategy in Zwift where you can spike your watts high and then super tuck through it. So that way you're gaining speed into your super tuck. And so you see me actually spike into a super tuck, and the super tuck takes me towards the front of the pack. Throughout the 6 laps of doing this, I had, paid attention to every little bump. So I know exactly where I can super tuck, where I should be spiking because I'll be out of the super tuck, where I can get away with doing very little work like right now. And again, spiking and super tucking again. And my plan was to just kind of monitor, right? See if anyone attacks early. In that case, I'm sure somebody would respond, and I can kind of tack on to that attack. When I see nobody attack with 0.4 kilometers to go, I know this is exactly what I want. And I have an arrow. I know there's a little bit of a dip into a 1% gradient right here. And that's when I hit the arrow, slowly drift to the front of the pack. And then when there's 250 meters to go, I know based on the numbers in the sign-up sheet that I probably have the best sprint in this field. And so I'm kind of letting you know that, this is where I'm going to go. And you see yourself kind of halfway in my draft too. But because of how I played that sprint and how I spiked through the pack, I established such a massive gap right away that, I guess it was just really hard to close because nobody was accelerating, that fast at that point. And so with the arrow time the way it was, I think, I was just able to hold on.
Yeah, going from back to front like that, because I positioned myself sort of mid pack, and I had pretty good watts, but you could see you had 12 meters on me pretty much instantaneously as you went through that pack, and I closed it down a little bit, but that was only because you eased up at the end because you had such a massive gap. And I mean, this is about as easy as a sprint victory can look. I see it's interesting. You hit the arrow a little bit earlier. You didn't time it so that it ran out across the finish line. You timed it so that you could establish that gap because it's flat running. You knew you had the speed. You knew you had the power to hold it off, and you got such a massive gap that it just worked out perfectly. So 1-2 for us in this race. Tons and tons of prime points. It honestly could not have worked out any better for Team TFC in this one. Congrats, man. That was a hell of a good race. So.
Yeah, thanks. And just to, playing off of what you just said, the reason I actually hit that arrow early, I probably would have saved it for another second or two. But the reason I did is because the button on my Wahoo Kicker bike wasn't working for the power up. And so I had to reach over and hit the space bar on my wireless keyboard. And I didn't want to do that while also sprinting if somebody had gone early. So I hit my arrow and then I just put my head down, knowing the course and knowing exactly how far it was from the finish and knowing how fast we were going. I knew that if I established any sort of gap, it would be almost impossible to close. So that was kind of a mindset going in, and yeah, it worked out perfectly, and we got the team victory by a healthy margin of points on this week. And I believe we finished second in the league. So that was great for us. And yeah, this was one of my favorite Zwift races of all time, probably.
I can see why, man. It's a great race. Well, thanks for joining. We'll have you back again soon, obviously. Just keep pumping out sprint numbers like this, and I don't think we'll have any choice. So everybody like, subscribe, and share. And hopefully you learned something from this and can take this into your own Zwift races. And we'll see you again next time.